All right, everybody, what's up? It is September, monthly strategic update with Brian Hale. Usually, Brian and I just kind of kick it off on like, hey, what's up with interest rates? What do you think's going to happen? Uh, what's the signal? What's the noise? Um, and I just thought we'd kick it off with the same headline because I do think it is signal about the Compass acquiring Anywhere real estate and all the different brands that come with that. That is definitely a signal. I don't think it's a new signal. Like I think it's same kind of signal as when we heard Rocket acquired Redfin and Mr. Cooper. And I don't think it's the last signal. But Brian Hale, what do you think, bro? What's this? What do
Yeah,
you
look,
take
I
from
don't
all
think it's
this?
the last signal by any stretch. And what it does for me a little bit, just as a side note, is that it confirms for me, like the Rocket, Redfin, Mr. Coop deal, Bayview, Guild, all of these. I think we're moving closer to the end of what has been a pretty ugly cycle because typically at the end of a bad cycle, people start consolidating and getting ready for the next run, right? And I don't mean run like 2020 and 2021, but I think better times, lower rates, more sales, some refi volume. And clearly in real estate, I mean, part of the challenge in doing these deals, and it's why there's been a fair amount of consolidation over the last 10 or 15 years. Um, the real estate brokerage business is not a great business. People who were in it who were making money, they were making money out of affiliate businesses, mortgage and title, insurance, and all these other things. That's not been a great primary business. And so you can see just people trying to gain scale, trying to gain brand depth, and then still working to figure out, okay, how do we make money doing this? I'm not sure that's yet clear.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, well, first of all, I think that's obvious, whether I agree with it or not. That's the data. Those are the economics. So
Yep,
I want to make sure we take this to what does this mean to lenders and loan officers?
I agree.
But before we both kind of, what does this mean to a lender? What does this mean to a loan officer? And what are the controllables? Because there's a lot of things that most 99% of lenders can't control. Like not everybody is looking for a Mr. Cooper to buy, nor can they. So let's try to close out with that. But let's break down this data. So, and I know you've been pretty busy the past few days. And then, by the way, guys, Brian Hale was in the hospital. He's leaving for Africa tomorrow, and he's fitting in he's a true warrior. Like nothing can slow this man down. But what is some of the data that you think when you think of this deal that you think
Well,
lenders?
look, somebody doesn't pay, was it 4 billion or whatever the hell they paid for it, and not think they picked up a ton of share, right? So I don't know the exact percentage of the combined entities, but it has to be huge, right? On a proportional basis in real estate, I think it's massive, um, as it relates to real estate. But I'm still not convinced it's going to change the world yet. I could be wrong. Maybe there's a play here that I'm just not seeing. I'm sure there probably is in their minds. But to mortgage lenders and originators, I don't know that a lot just changed, other than, as I'm sure all know, there's a couple of mortgage entities involved here that were part of Rate, right? So Compass had the joint venture with Rate. I'm not sure they have cracked that code yet. And in fact, I know they have not at some hellacious attach rate, but they're stacking up volume and opportunity, and somebody will eventually crack that code at Rate. I think you never know. It's subject to execution. So you've got another consolidation, not unlike in the servicing book with Rocket, Cooper, Redfin, Bayview, Guild. Now on the real estate side, the bigger getting bigger. And all of that is about trying to figure out a new business model that serves the consumer, that lowers costs, that is a one-stop shop, all the things that everybody's trying to create. Nobody's completely cracked it yet, but I think as it relates to originators and mortgage companies in general, mortgage lenders in general, I would take the signal as you've got to get better, more pointed, have a plan, work the plan, be more disciplined, because there's a lot of forces that are trying to figure out a way to do it without you.
Yeah, agreed. I would say as a lender and loan officer, and not that the data that I'm gonna share right now is completely relevant, but I do think to put it in perspective, uh, so I'm told from ChatGPT that the Compass and Anywhere uh, combination is about 18% of US residential real estate by sales volume.
Yeah. So one in
Again,
five,
what's that?
1 in 5 sales.
One in five. And I'm pretty sure that if you put the top 8 to 9 mortgage lenders together, it'd be in the 18 to 21% range.
Yeah, you're
So
probably right.
yeah, so just that's pretty mind-boggling to think that a real estate company can control that type of market share. And so I think the days of whether it's mortgage, whether it's real estate, where there is not an Amazon and a Walmart and a really big player, like they're gone, and already Rocket with their acquisition is one in five, uh, 1 in 5 mortgages. So I just think like, do you agree with that? Like check,
Totally,
there are
totally.
mega players on
They
both
still got to go
sides.
prove they can build a business out of it, and 1 + 1 = 5, right? But
Yeah,
there's some smart folks over there. They stacked up a bunch of clay. Now they gotta move the clay into being a beautiful vase.
right. And then I've had a number of conversations with folks, and Greg Shear did a great post. Greg, you're always the first to break it. Congratulations on being one of the first to bring insight. And I thought it was a great post. He talked about scale. And then he did say something, and I've heard other people talk about how these big deals are hurting innovation. I made a comment on Greg's post where I really think they are a call to innovation. Like if you are not one of these top 1% players that can make deals and be this mega player, like it is time to innovate and time to change and upgrade if you're a
Yeah,
small to medium lender. And if you're a loan officer, like this is like game time when it comes to innovation and change. What are your thoughts on
right.
that?
I agree with that. I just want to pile on your comment. Look, I have a lot of admiration for Greg as well and how quickly he gets these things done. I might disagree with him a little bit. I think the combined companies will have access to a ton of capital. Capital can make you fat, dumb, and lazy, but it can also fund innovation, technological innovation, investments in AI and other pieces. I think that's true on the Rocket Coop Redfin deal as well. Um, but nobody's going to quit and go home in the real estate business just because Compass bought Anywhere, right? So there will continue to be innovation out there. And I see it as twofold. As it relates to doing business with them, with the Compass Anywhere combination, you're going to have to be better. You're going to have to add more value to try to outrace whatever they decide to do internally, right? In the process, by way of trying to capture the mortgage opportunity, title opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. And as it relates to people who are not them, you got to find the ones who are not part of Compass and Anywhere, who are still killing it, doing the right things, and figure out how you help them do more of their business, add value to them, and you go along for the ride by improving your origination capability. I think the days of show up and throw up as an originator are for the most part over.
Yeah.
Absent,
And by the way, I
absent,
want to make sure
absent absent a refi boom.
and I want to make sure I got Greg's post right because I mean, like I said, he helped break the story, and I really liked everyone's cheering scale. And then his actual sentence was, "This isn't a victory for innovation; it's consolidation by survival." And I guess my only point to that,
That's true.
it is consolidation by survival. Like at least I think it is. But I do think it could be a real victory for innovation. But I think it requires it requires the big players to execute well. To your point, but I think it requires the little players to execute well on
Smarter
innovation,
and sharper. Exactly.
smarter and sharper. So by the way, anyone listening to this, if you've got questions, comments, weigh in down below. This will not be the last podcast from me, from Greg. Housing Wire is doing a great job of reporting this as always. There's been, and by the way, all the great leaders we have on LinkedIn in the mortgage industry, it's like, it's awesome the quality of content we have in the mortgage space. You know, you get Brian Hale, like definitely someone that I look for what Brian's saying on LinkedIn. Greg, you know, Brian View has become president of Mismo. Congratulations, by the way, on that.
Yeah,
And to
absolutely.
me, by the way, I'm pretty stoked on that because I've always felt like Mismo, I know what they do, but I don't know what they do. And I've always felt like it's purely a community for loan manufacturing and for the LOSs, the POSs, the document companies, the loan manufacturing companies. And I do think with Brian there, we will see greater awareness around that. And then we're also going to see the top of the funnel where,
Yeah.
by the way, there's a lot of money to be made in top of the funnel. We're going to see good things happen from that.
He's reached out to come back on the weekly roadmap to talk a little bit about Mismo and what his vision there is. Because I
Yeah,
like you,
yeah.
I always knew who they were, but I was never I don't know that I could have written a white paper on exactly what they did.
Well, I'm certain I couldn't have written a white paper, and I don't even know if I could have done an elevator pitch.
Right.
At least it's not an accurate one. So Brian, if you were head of sales right now for, forget about the size, big, small, of a lot of local referral-based originators, one, I want to just get your soundbite on this because they've got to, you know, they've got to have a talking point. They're going to be talking to other realtors. It's big news in there. Like, what's some of your talking points? And then since we talked last, we're now in a refi market, and so let's talk about refis and realtors and how a mortgage professional should take action on this.
Yeah. So I think a couple of different ways. So first of all, if I was a head of production, and you and I've talked about this a couple times on this, so I don't want to be too redundant, so I'll go quickly on it. I want to know if I'm a head of production, who my entire sales force is calling on by person, what the profile of that real estate agent is, where the volume that we're not getting is going. And I want to provide all that data to the originator by way of helping him or her build an action plan in their marketplace to continue to go deeper with the referral sources they have and identify the referral sources, whether they're at Compass and Anywhere or Billy Bob Real Estate. I want to know the people who are actually selling real estate because I can assure you that in this combination of Compass and Anywhere, there's a whole bunch of real estate agents who actually aren't selling a lot of real estate. And then there are some absolute killers. And knowing the difference between those two is, in my view, success in the mortgage business, right? To spend your time and effort marketing to those who actually sell real estate, not just people who are in real estate. So, you and I've talked about this before, the old concept of data, knowing who your sales force is calling on, and almost as importantly, why are they calling on them? I would start there. And whether it's Compass and Anywhere, I would, the only part of this thing that is noise to me is if I'm a sales leader or a salesperson, it's an interesting article to read. I got to get back and do what I do, and I got to perform on my plan, and I've got to deliver for my referral sources, and I've got to be well educated so I can be an optimal professional to my referral partners and their customers. I'm working on scripts. I'm working on scripting them how to refer to me. I continue to pedal the bike at a high rate of speed on the plan that I've set forward for myself to be as successful as I otherwise can be. And I don't spend a lot of time kibitzing about whether Compass bought Anywhere. Within that,
Yeah,
within that whole milieu, I want to know who the players are. And without regard to what their label is on their jacket, I want to go do business with them.
that's for sure. If they're doing volume, tell me what you
Correct.
think about this talk track. And I interviewed on today's Tuesday podcast Andy Zeman, who before the recent reduction rates was on track to do about 80 million, so killing it. And now he's like, I'm going to do well over 100, like, so and his philosophy was, I want to optimize refis, but I want to double down on realtors and
Yeah,
purchase,
absolutely. Absolutely.
because he's like, a lot of loan officers are just going to ignore realtors. And he said, I've already talked to big buyers agents and it's already kind of a buzz with the realtors I'm talking about, how a lot of loan officers aren't, have
They didn't show
disappeared.
up. They didn't show up this week because they're chasing something else.
Yeah. So he said, one, I'm only doing refis in mornings, evenings, and weekends. And I do not like to work weekends. And I'm at a point where I really don't need to. But he goes, I really like to hit my goals. And my goal was to hit 100 million, and I was only going to hit 80. So I'm working weekends on refis. So by the way, I thought that was only doing refis on
Well,
mornings.
the whole double down on purchase and I don't want to say minimize, but find the appropriate level of business mix for yourself where you don't blow up your fulfillment and yourself and your team, if you have a team, on something that I will guarantee you is only going to last 6 to 9 months on the outside.
Okay. So you heard it from Brian. He thinks it's only going to last 6 to 9 months. That's part of his advice. But you want to win short term and long term?
Yeah, yeah.
Do what Andy's doing. Um, and then, of course, he's using Mortgage Coach next gen. He's using the app. He actually tells a story. I'll put a link to the full interview, which you have to listen to. It's literally one of the best interviews of the year. But he's using the app to know when to call people for refis, and then he's given a Mortgage Coach. And then with realtors, what are, again, aside from making sure you're calling the right ones, what are some of the things that you think today's loan officer needs to be bringing?
Well, a strategy and a plan to help that realtor enhance and grow their business. And through that process, look to improve your share of that realtor or that agent's business, right? It can't be, hey, Dave, I'd like to do business with you so I can make more money. It has to be, I'm willing to invest my time, effort, resources, and team in growing your business. How could I help? What is the 2 or 3 things that are the most important thing to you? And I had I always butcher her first name. Is it Leslie Newman in Nashville? That was at your event in Vegas.
Well, because Newman, I am not remembering her first name, but I know it's not Leslie.
Yeah,
It'll
you're
come
right.
to me.
I'll get it. I've got it right here, so I'll find it. But anyway, long and short, I had her on the weekly roadmap, and she hit this thing called TLDR. And she was talking, I had her do the 10 things to do to approach a realtor and the 10 things. By the way, if you're a member of the weekly roadmap or you want to be, join and you can go back and watch this presentation by her because she did an unbelievable job. We got an unbelievable response out of it. And one of them was, don't send me 4 reams of data on Monday about what's going on in the market. Send me a update on the market that I can copy and paste into a text out to uh, my leads and my customers and those kinds of things. And if it's too long, I'm going to send you back a response that says TLDR. Too long, didn't read. And that is, that's just fabulous, right? And so a lot of really great pieces of advice buried in there. And so um, it's about adding value and helping them build their business. If it's all about you building your business, I don't think they care. I know I would.
Agreed. Yeah, a couple thoughts, especially with these headlines in this news, which I think is newsworthy for sure, when we have two companies coming together to make an 18% market share, which we have to assume will inevitably grow to 25-ish percent, is I would reach out to all your realtors that are doing business, to Brian's point, and ask them, what do you think? What do you think of this? And what does this mean to you? Like, if you could get people to start, like, get them to think, get them to, like, what does this mean to you? And then my instincts are always, how are you going to turn this into an advantage for yourself? Like, anytime something big happens, there's news, there's change, whether it's bad news, scary news, it's like, how are we going to turn this into an advantage for you? And then co-author some strategies so that we could turn this into innovation. We can turn this into change. What do you think about that talk track?
I totally agree. The best, when I was an originator, the best relationships, by the way, it's Lacey Newman.
Lacey,
Yeah,
I
forgive me.
almost had it.
Yeah, forgive me, Lacey, if you see this.
I
Um,
could see you multitasking on me. Nice job.
it's all right. Sorry. Um, the the best relationships I ever had, and I think the best relationships I see in the marketplace, are where people are true business partners with their referral sources. They're not an external being glomming onto that resource. They are, how do we build our business together? How can I help you build your business so then I have the right to come and ask you to help me build my business? Maybe to introduce me to other people in your office or whatever the case may be. One other thing on this refi pop that's happening right now, when you're talking to your past customers about this refi, a really important question, in my opinion, to ask them, how are you feeling about the house you're in now? And with rates coming down, do you have any needs about moving up? Are you having another child? Do you have, something going on that I could introduce you back to the agent that bought your house? You want to bring that lead back to your agent. You're still going to get a mortgage and you're going to get a great depth of relationship. So figuring out where people are, people who bought in 2002, 3, been in the house now for a couple of years, things change. Make sure there isn't a purchase lead buried at the bottom of the refi lead.
Yeah, agreed, agreed. And do be informed, folks. I mean, understand what's going on. Actually, I just noticed 48 minutes ago, Greg posted James Dwiggins, someone that I'll probably be interviewing soon, who I have a lot of respect for. He's the CEO of Next Home, which is
Yep.
like a top 20. Like
Yep.
I'm actually gonna go listen to this because I want to know what a top 20 guy like James Dwiggins thinks about all this. So do be smart, mortgage professionals. Like this is the time. Make sure you're paying attention to Housing Wire, you're netting it out, you understand what happened, but then do not forget, like all that matters is what is the realtor? Are you one of you talking to quality realtors? What do they think it means to them? And how are you going to help them turn this into a competitive advantage that helps them get more listings, work with more buyers, gain market share, win with their database, win in their local community? Like everything else is noise.
By the way, I'm not convinced that individual real estate agents will see this as a plus, this
No, no, I don't think
conversation,
they will.
because all they interpret that as is that Compass now has more leverage and more power over their agents.
I haven't talked to enough realtors to have that opinion, but it would be very surprising if that is not what most of them thought. And I do think there'll be a lot of rhetoric, which whether or not it's true or not, that this really gives Compass a lot of power to, be their own MLS and not put properties on the MLS and play a different game, but
Right.
I'm not
That,
close
that'll be
enough
the
to the
challenge, that's
space.
for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to turn it into an opportunity to grow.
Right.
Anything else that you think we need to cover before you go to Africa for a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I don't look, I think there's a push into the last portion of the year here. We saw a little improvement in the 10-year today. I'll be interested to see there's a huge data point coming out Friday morning, which is the personal consumption expenditure index, which is the Fed's favorite measurement of inflation at the consumer level. If it comes in hot, we could lose a little ground here. If it comes in at or better than expectations, we could gain some ground in rates and start creeping up on that high fives number. Um, but I also think we're going to trade in a range here for a while. And I don't think you're going to see some massive precipitous drop in interest rates. So this is the time to double down, work harder, work your plan, have a plan, make sure your team is organized, do better for your referral partners now as you move into the first part of next year. That's kind of where if I was an originator today, that's where I'd be focused, is improving me and my team, making sure I'm continuing to prospect to the right realtors who are actually selling real estate, and be focused on helping them build their business into 26 and to take the ride along with them. That'd be my game plan.
You heard it from Brian Hale. That's a damn good game plan. Take
And by
notes.
the way, and this will sound like I'm sucking up to Dave Savage, which I'm more than willing to do. But if you're not using the mortgage coach tools, those kinds of things, look, I see more and more people embracing them. I get a sense your share has got to be growing, Dave, because I see a lot of people talking about them. And I think, I was on a MBA webcast today with Adam Carmel from Poly, talking about revenue management and those kinds of things. And we were talking about innovation. And I said, it's whether or not is there a good ROI on some of this, investment in innovation and technology and those kinds of things. I said, guys, I think that's an important measure, but let me just give you a little other different metaphor way to think about this. For years, countries used to go to war with spears and swords. And then one day an army showed up with rifles. Do you think the losing army in that battle thought to themselves, well, we could buy rifles, but we should consider what the ROI is first? You need the tools to compete. And there may not be a flawless ROI investment calculus on it, but absent investing in that tool to compete, you could get wiped out.
Yeah, there's no doubt your tools matter, your skills matter. And here's what I believe. I believe that the common LO today is struggling at best. I mean, struggling to dying, and does not have future-proof business practices. Like
Correct.
they have old school workflows.
Right.
The uncommon LO is winning, gaining market share, and doing it in a way that is future proof. So it's one of the reasons why I launched a new social media brand actually yesterday called Uncommon LO. It's only available on TikTok and Instagram. So go subscribe because I do believe any and all loan officers can be the uncommon LO, but they need to have the right
No
mindset.
doubt.
They need to have the right future proof strategies, and they need to have the right scripts. So all the content is like 90 seconds or less. Scripts, mindset. If you are a manager, I would push your loan officers to subscribe to Uncommon LO. Check it out, guys. There'll be
Dave,
links.
I would give, if I could, I'm going to be gone in Africa for the next 2 weeks. Although last week I did my weekly roadmap podcast from my hospital room, which nurses and doctors really appreciated. But for the next 2 weeks, I've got Joe Massey from Synergy One is going to fill in for me as the guest host, and he's got some outstanding guests as well coming on. So I encourage people to go up and listen to Joe. You get a little different perspective. He'll be running the market update as well as running the call along with Maria Elena James, my executive producer and partner. And I encourage people to continue to go up, and I'll be back on, I think it's October 10th. I land back from Africa on the 9th, and I'll be on the call on the morning of the 10th. And I encourage you to check Joe Massey out. He's been a superstar on the call, does a ton of training in the business, and I think he'd be a great guest.
First of all, I'd be a great guest. I need to have him be part of the Uncommon LO. So Joe Massey,
No
I'm coming.
doubt.
And guys, let me tell you another reason why you need to go to that call, and we'll put a link down below to sign up for it. But Joe is completely future proof. Like Amazon Mortgage
Totally.
could move into Denver, Colorado, and Rocket could move their headquarters, and he would still crush it because he's helping people build wealth with real estate.
Totally.
He's helping, like he's written books on house hacking. Like you want to do house hacking in Denver, Colorado? If you Google house hacking in Denver, Colorado, his book's going to be at the top of the list. Like he's teaching people how to build wealth with
Yeah.
real
Look,
estate.
he
Yes, he
now
does
teaches.
loans. Yes, he
Right.
does loans.
Right. He wrote a book on how to teach realtors to use AI in their business. And he goes out and trains realtors on how to use AI to improve their business. And oh, by the way, he does loans. A lot of them, by the way.
Well, I'm super glad that I get to watch the recording and have access to that. So put a link down below, weekly roadmap. I'm a big fan. I think Brian is one of the most prolific and most important sales leaders in the history of the mortgage business. And so to be able to hear, like, what does he think is important? Who does he think you should listen to every Wednesday, or excuse me, every
Every
Friday
Friday, 9
at
a.m.
9
Pacific.
o'clock? Check it out. Any other closing thoughts, man?
No, other than look, I think this has been a really long 3-year period. I think we're at the precipice maybe of some better times, not bon ton roulette, but better times. And look, I said this to a bunch of salespeople on the call last week. I applaud everybody who's in the business today who was in the business in 20 and 21, because as you know, an awful lot of people have washed out. And so it's a
Right.
compliment to their tenacity and professionalism that they're still here. And I think as this thing begins to come back, the future, I still believe the future of the next 5 to 10 years in the mortgage business is outstanding, primarily because of demographics. You have a ton of home buyers forming families and needing to buy a home. You're still standing. The market's smaller than it used to be. You have less competition and more opportunity
If you are delivering,
if you execute.
yeah, if you've unlearned some old school ways of doing things, like if you are still giving a fee worksheet, when you give price to a consumer, if it's rate, payment, cash to close, and you're not delivering advice with price, you're old school. So, all right, man, we'll have a wonderful time in Africa. For any mortgage leaders, I'm sure you're going to be at MBA, right? You're going
I
to be
will be. Yeah.
both Brian and I.
I'll be at NAM and MBA.
Okay, so one, let's make sure you and I schedule a podcast at MBA this year.
Absolutely.
So Brian and I will be doing a live podcast from MBA, and then I know I want to meet with people that want to innovate. I want to meet with people that want to win going forward in a way that's future proof. So reach out to me. I know Brian feels the same way. I still have some room on my dance card. So tell your managers if you want Mortgage Coach built into your tech stack. If you want them to win, have a meet with Brian and I. This is a wrap, everybody. Take care.
Take care, David. My best.
Take care.